Hello, namaskar. This is Firstpost, and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Donald Trump's tariff war is starting to look like a brutal brawl. Both the US and China are trading blows. Last night, Trump raised the stakes again. He threatened to increase tariffs on Chinese goods by another 50%. The message was clear: back down or pay the price. Trump wants China to withdraw its retaliatory tariffs. If it doesn't, Chinese imports could face a 104% tax in the US. Beijing has refused to blink. China has vowed to fight till the very end. So what can China do next? And can it keep up this trade fight without taking damage? We will bring you the latest in Trump's trade war. Meanwhile, global markets showed some signs of recovery today, but the storm may not have passed. American CEOs are now warning of a possible recession. Europe is also on edge. European leaders want to avoid the fallout from Trump's tariffs, but the White House is not listening. And that has left many world leaders asking the question, what does Trump really want from this trade war? Also on the show, China's military is expanding its presence in the South China Sea. China held drills at the Ream naval base in Cambodia. A drone has triggered tensions between Algeria and the Sahel region in Africa. Is India prepared for the heat wave this year? And how scientists reverse the extinction of the dire wolf. All this and more coming up. But first, the headlines.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky claims his troops have captured 2 Chinese citizens fighting alongside Russian forces. Kyiv says it will demand an explanation from Beijing. Russia and China have deepened their political, military, and economic cooperation since the Ukraine war began in 2022. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth fires the U.S. military representative to NATO. He says her removal was due to a loss of confidence in her ability to lead. She is the latest in a string of top officers to be dismissed by President Trump's administration. South Korean troops fire warning shots after North Korean soldiers briefly crossed the heavily fortified border that divides the peninsula. Some of the soldiers who crossed the frontier were armed and wearing bulletproof vests. Relations between the two Koreas are at one of their lowest points in years. Ethiopia appoints a new leader of the interim administration in the northern Tigray region. The move aims to ease months of tensions between rival factions that have threatened a fragile peace agreement. Tigray still suffers from the aftermath of a brutal 2-year conflict which ended in 2022. And Meta is extending its teen accounts to its social network Facebook, after recently introducing restrictions on Instagram. The accounts were brought in for 13 to 15-year-old users of Instagram last September to shield them from online harms.
If Trump wants a trade war, China is ready to fight. The world's top 2 economies are on a collision course. Last week, the US president unveiled his reciprocal tariffs. He imposed the highest rates on Chinese goods, and Beijing hit back immediately. It imposed retaliatory tariffs. Now, President Trump has issued an ultimatum. He wants China to drop its retaliatory tariffs. If they refuse, Trump is ready to strike again. He is threatening an additional 50% tax on Chinese imports. And that's not all. If China does not step back, Trump says he will cancel all trade negotiations, so no more meetings, calls, or dialogue. Trump has issued a deadline to Beijing. China has until the end of the day to respond.
With China, as you know, against my statement, they put a 34% tariff on above what their ridiculous tariffs were already. And I said, if that tariff isn't removed by tomorrow at 12 o'clock, we're putting a 50% tariff on above the tariffs that we put on.
President Trump is clearly raising the stakes. So what does an extra 50% tax actually mean? Let's break it down for you. Earlier, Chinese goods faced a 20% tariff. Last week, Trump raised this by 34%, or added 34%. That's when he announced reciprocal tariffs on all US trade partners. That took the total tariffs to 54%, and now he's threatening 50% more. If Trump follows through on his threat, Chinese imports to the US will be taxed at 104%. This is unprecedented. The US and China may be fierce rivals, but they need each other on trade. A 104% tariff would hit Americans hard, because the US depends on China for a wide range of products: electronics, furniture, machinery, toys, vehicles, a whole lot of things. All these goods are caught in the crossfire now, and it's not just about imports. China is a major buyer of American goods too. It imports products worth billions of dollars every year, from staples like soybean to airplanes, medicines, and machines. So after Trump's threat, will China change its mind? Will it back down? It looks unlikely at the moment. China issued a statement in the morning today. It said it will fight till the end.
Chinese people do not provoke trouble, nor are they afraid of it. Pressure, threats, and blackmail are not the right ways to deal with China. China will surely take necessary measures to resolutely safeguard its legitimate rights and interests. If the U.S. disregards the interests of both countries and the international community and insists on engaging in a tariff war and trade war, China will fight to the end.
The message from the Communist Party is clear: China will not retreat. Chinese mouthpieces have published a sharp editorial. It talks about Trump's trade war and China's response to it. And here's what it says. Beijing feels a trade breakthrough is unlikely. It has, and I'm quoting, stopped clinging to illusions of a deal. That's what the editorial says, that the Chinese have stopped clinging to the illusions of a deal. Experts in Beijing agree with this assessment. One of them made a blunt assessment, in fact. You just slapped my face, and I'm not just going to call you and beg your pardon. That's the mood in China. They see Trump's trade war as an insult. So a climb down is unlikely. In fact, the trade war could escalate. So what will China do if Trump raises the tariffs to 104%? Beijing does have some options. It could let the yuan weaken. That's the Chinese currency. They could let it weaken. This would make exports cheaper and soften the blow of tariffs. That's because the Chinese currency would lose value against the US dollar. So that is one of the options. Another option is to tighten control over rare earths. Now, these are minerals used to make modern-day tech gadgets, modern-day technologies like semiconductors. China dominates global supply of rare earths. So on that front, it can hurt the US. Beijing could also target US companies in China. But hurting the US alone does not solve China's problems. Their own economy is under immense pressure. Global banks are sounding an alarm. 3 of them have issued warnings. That's UBS, Goldman Sachs, and Morgan Stanley. All these banks say that China's growth could slow down further. Beijing set a target of 5% growth this year. But these banks feel that China may not meet that target. They expect China to grow at only 4%, which is a cut of 1%. 1% lower than Beijing's own assessment. Despite that, China is standing its ground. It is signaling defiance. It wants to fight it out. But it knows that this is going to be a long and costly battle. There was some respite for investors today. After days of blinking red, the markets are moving up. A tentative recovery of sorts. It began with East Asian markets. Japan's Nikkei closed more than 6% up today. Clearly, investors were feeling hopeful, and they had reason to. Donald Trump spoke to the Japanese Prime Minister yesterday. He promised to give them priority. Basically, Japan has jumped to the start of the queue for trade talks. They will soon send a team to Washington, hence the market recovery. Same in South Korea. The Kospi index opened nearly 2% up, but most of the gains were wiped out later in the day. Still, it is better than Monday, I guess. In Hong Kong, the Hang Seng also had a stable day. It closed around 1.5% up. In China, the Shanghai Composite also recovered. It closed almost 1.6% up. And this is despite the escalation between China and the US. Now we come to India. Both the Nifty and Sensex recovered today. The Sensex gained more than 1,000 points. The Nifty gained around 370 points in today's trade. Then later in the evening, Western markets opened too. And they too showed signs of recovery. So what explains this rebound? A number of reasons. For starters, a lot of governments are reaching out to Donald Trump. They want to strike a deal with the US president, and Japan is just one example. More than 50 countries have allegedly reached out. Clearly, investors feel that talks will triumph. A second reason is to buy the dip. You see, investors are always looking for a good bargain. And what better time than now, in the middle of a major crash? It's a good time to scoop up stocks at a lower rate, and clearly some investors are doing that. Finally, China has announced some measures. Their state-run companies will be buying more shares. The idea is to prop up the markets. And looking at the numbers, it is working. But should we see this as a permanent recovery, as the end of the plunge? Absolutely not. Trump's reciprocal tariffs will kick in tomorrow. Many business leaders feel it could lead to a recession. Look at this survey of American CEOs. 69% of them expect a recession. 69% American CEOs see a recession coming. More than half of those CEOs think that it will happen this year. Such fears are rampant in US business circles now. Consider what Larry Link said. He's the CEO of the world's largest asset manager, BlackRock. And this is what he said. Most CEOs I talked to would say that we are probably in a recession right now. And that's a damning assessment, especially coming from BlackRock CEO. Top banks have also joined in. Goldman Sachs upped their recession forecast from 35 to 45%, and that's assuming that the tariffs are lifted. JP Morgan pegged the probability at 60%. Once the tariffs are imposed, we will see new forecasts, and chances are they will be even higher. But how does this actually work? How do tariffs cause a recession? Well, starting tomorrow, prices in America will start to rise. Importers will have to pay more because of the tariffs, and they will offload that burden to consumers. In simple words, it will cause inflation. For producers, it will also cause uncertainty. A lot of countries are imposing retaliatory tariffs. Some of them are even boycotting US goods. All of this means uncertainty for American producers. So what will they do? They will stop investing and expanding, meaning no hirings, no new investments, and probably more layoffs. Same for the consumers. The rising prices will reduce their consumption level, and when consumption falls, economic activity will fall too. The end result? A slowdown, leading to a recession. This won't just affect America. We are talking about a highly integrated economy. The US is deeply connected to the global economic system. If they enter a recession, everyone will be affected. And just to be clear, all of this is avoidable. Nobody is forcing Donald Trump to impose these tariffs. He's doing it voluntarily. It's almost like he's unaware of the damage that's being caused. Because in the middle of all of this, Trump is focused on other things as well, like military spending. Guess how much he's planning to spend on the US military? $1 trillion. That's the plan, $1 trillion of military budget. If approved, it would be an all-time record. So President Trump seems oblivious to the churn around him, and some of the CEOs have pointed that out. They're putting the blame where it should be. They are calling it the Trump recession. There are two kinds of breakups. One is messy and full of yelling. The other is just a long, awkward silence until someone finally slams the door. For the US and Europe, it's definitely the second kind. Last week, Donald Trump made it official. He announced his new round of tariffs, and Europe did not walk away unscathed. 20% on all imports, 25% on steel, aluminium and cars. That's what Europe got. And since then, Europe has been mulling on the next steps. Do they hit back with more tariffs, or do they talk their way through this? Their first choice was negotiation. Europe offered a 0-for-0 tariff pact. Essentially, a no-tariff trade deal. This was for industrial goods.
We stand ready to negotiate with the United States. Indeed, we have offered 0-for-0 tariffs for industrial goods, as we have successfully done with many other trading partners. Because Europe is always ready for a good deal, so we keep it on the table.
Europe is one of America's biggest allies and trading partners. In 2023, the European Union exported $500 billion worth of goods to the US. $500 billion. In 2024, it was the largest single market for US exports. So the deal made perfect sense for both sides. And even Trump's first buddy backed it. I'm talking about Elon Musk. He says he hopes for zero tariffs between the US and Europe.
I'm hopeful that there can be a very close relationship with America and Europe. And I'm hopeful, for example, with the tariffs, that at the end of the day, I hope it is agreed that both Europe and the United States should move, ideally, in my view, to a zero tariff situation, effectively creating a free trade zone between Europe and North America.
So Europe had the tentative deal. They were willing to negotiate. They hoped that Trump would take the bait. But the US president was not interested.
It's got to be fair and reciprocal. It's got to be fair. It's not fair. We have a deficit with the European Union of $350 billion. And it's going to disappear fast. And one of the reasons and one of the ways that that can disappear easily and quickly is they're going to have to buy our energy from us because they need it. They're going to have to buy it from us. They can buy it. We can knock off $350 billion in 1 week.
Trump is not chasing zero tariffs. He's chasing a smaller trade deficit. And he wants it done quickly. So when Europe showed up with a deal, Trump barely blinked. It doesn't fix the deficit, so he doesn't care. And that leaves Europe with just one card left to play: retaliation.
Then we have seen that the countries who try to ease the conflicts beforehand with the US and hoped for a reduction of tariffs or being excluded from tariffs are wrong. This has not happened. So I can only say to the European partners, we have to stay united. If you try to solve the problem on your own, this will not be successful.
So the EU is preparing to answer in kind, but not all member states agree on how. They have a few options in front of them. One is reciprocal tariffs. The EU is planning to impose tariffs on a list of American goods. This includes diamonds, motorcycles, tobacco, agricultural products, and many others. Europe also planned to tax American whiskey, to impose a 50% retaliatory tariff on American whiskey, but they have dropped that plan for now. That's the first option. The second option is a digital tax. The EU wants to target American big tech. Most of them have a wide footprint in Europe, but they pay very little in terms of taxes. Europe wants to change that, and they are proposing a hefty digital tax. The third option is being called a trade bazooka. It's called an ACI, an anti-coercion instrument, ACI, anti-coercion instrument. Europe first adopted it in 2023. They've not used it since, but now they're not shying away from it. Using the ACI gives Europe greater powers to respond to any trade coercion. They can restrict US companies in Europe. They can stop them from getting public tenders. They can limit investment in US services and even protect intellectual property rights.
We are not in a business to going, let's say, cent for cent or tit for tat or dollar for dollar, but we of course would consider what are all the other instruments which we have on the table.
But Europe is not drawing the line here. They're willing to go all the way, including ditching Visa and MasterCard. Both Visa and MasterCard are American-owned global payment networks. They don't actually issue the cards, but that's how any transaction really happens. If you pay by a Visa card, the transaction travels through Visa's network. The European Central Bank president wants to ditch this. She wants the bloc to be financially independent and to use a European alternative to Visa and MasterCard. It won't be an easy task, but it goes to show how desperate Europe is to decouple. America and Europe have a long shared history. They have a robust transatlantic alliance. For years, they were fundamentally on the same team. But now there's a clear rift. Europe sees tariffs as a stab in the back, something that may have permanently damaged that relationship. Now, make no mistake, the EU does not want a trade war. The consequences will be too severe. So they will probably talk. Negotiation is in the bloc's DNA. But if Trump keeps twisting the knife, it won't be long before Brussels reaches for that bazooka. At the center of this trade war is one question. What does Donald Trump want? What will make him stop this madness? Even world leaders are wondering the same, but so far no one has found out. And I'll tell you why. Because of Trump's mixed messaging. He has given different reasons for this tariff war. Sometimes he blames the deficit. Sometimes he blames the tariffs. And sometimes he blames pillaging and raping. That's how he put it. Listen to this.
We're not going to have deficits with your country. We're not going to do that because to me a deficit is a loss. We're going to have surpluses or we're at worst going to be breaking even. For decades, our country has been looted, pillaged, raped, and plundered by nations near and far, both friend and foe alike. They watched in anguish as foreign leaders have stolen our jobs, foreign cheaters have ransacked our factories, and foreign scavengers have torn apart our once beautiful American dream. It's going to be reciprocal. In other words, whatever they're charging, we're charging. Very simple. If they're charging us, we're charging them. It's no longer they charge us and we don't charge them.
There are three possibilities here. One, Trump is using tariffs to put pressure on other countries. He doesn't actually want to wipe out the deficit. He just wants better deals. Two, he wants to change the face of global trade. No more Chinese or Asian products. He wants to actually make American goods great again. Or three, this is all a political stunt, just like annexing Canada or Greenland. So which one is it? Let's look at the first possibility. A number of countries have offered concessions to Donald Trump. Israel is one of them. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was in Washington yesterday. He promised two things: to eliminate Israel's trade surplus with America and to reduce trade barriers. Listen to this.
I can tell you that I said to the president a very simple thing. We will eliminate the trade deficit with the United States. We intend to do it very quickly. We think it's the right thing to do. And we're going to also eliminate trade barriers, a variety of trade barriers that have been put up unnecessarily.
Sounds enough, doesn't it? But not for Trump. Despite the concession, he refused to give tariff relief.
Mr. President, do you plan to reduce the tariffs that your government put on Israeli goods, 70%?
On where?
On Israeli goods, the 17%. Do you plan
Well,
to
we're
reduce-
talking about a whole new trade. Maybe not. Maybe not. Don't forget, we help Israel a lot. You know, we give Israel $4 billion a year. That's a lot.
Vietnam is another example. They have offered to remove all tariffs on US goods. Again, dream scenario, right? But not enough for Donald Trump. His top trade official rejected Vietnam's offer. He said zero tariffs mean nothing. It is non-tariff cheating that matters. He went on to write an op-ed for the Financial Times. Let me quote from what he wrote. To those world leaders who, after decades of cheating, are suddenly offering to lower tariffs, know this. That's just the beginning. So talks and concessions may not work. What about retaliation? A few countries have taken this route. They're treating these tariffs as a sort of bluff. And how do you respond to a bluff? You call it. China has hit back at the US with 34% tariffs, but Trump is not backing down. Instead, he has threatened more tariffs on China. If he follows through, he could be serious. If not, it may not have been a bluff. Now let's look at the second possibility, that is that Trump wants countries to buy American goods. This is a good goal to have, but it may not be practical. Let me show you some numbers. America's manufacturing output is $2.9 trillion. Out of this, $1.6 trillion is exported. The rest is consumed at home. Now look at America's trade deficit. It is over $1 trillion. So can you wipe out $1 trillion deficit with only manufacturing? The answer is no, because the US is not a manufacturing powerhouse, not like it used to be. Which brings us to the final possibility. This is all just a political stunt. There is evidence to support this. Trump has repeatedly mischaracterized deficits and tariffs. He has said that other countries pay tariffs, which is wrong. Other countries do not pay tariffs. Americans will pay these extra tariffs. Similarly, he has called trade deficits a sort of loss. Again, economists disagree with this. Deficits are not always bad. You look at rich countries like Britain, Japan, or France. All of them run a trade deficit. That doesn't mean they're getting ripped off. It is impossible for a country to produce everything they need, so rich countries just buy them from abroad. It's not a loss or a rip-off. It's just a function of trade. Either Donald Trump is unaware of this reality or he's hiding it from the people. It is up to other world leaders to figure it out. That brings us to Benjamin Netanyahu. As I mentioned earlier, the Israeli Prime Minister was in Washington yesterday. He met with President Donald Trump at the White House. It was his second visit to Washington in 2 months. Tariffs dominated the conversation, but the two leaders also discussed two major flashpoints: the war in Gaza and the Iran nuclear deal. President Trump says that Israel is currently working on a hostage deal and he's pushing hard for a ceasefire in Gaza. He believes it could happen soon. On Iran, there was a big development. Trump announced direct nuclear talks will begin this Saturday. He says he's hopeful for a deal, but also warned of serious consequences if Tehran walks away. Our next report has all the details.
The Oval Office can sometimes feel like a theatre set, especially when Donald Trump is at center stage. No one knows which way the conversation can go. But Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't have any such problem. This is his second trip to the Oval Office since February.
It's an honor to have a very, very special person. I've dealt with him for a long time, Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel. And we had lunch together, we had meetings together, along with his very capable staff. And I think we've come up to some pretty good solutions and conclusions. And we'll be working a little bit after this, and then I assume you're going back home.
The meeting had two main highlights. First, the Iran nuclear deal. Donald Trump made a surprise announcement during the meeting. He said the US would begin direct high-level talks with Iran on Saturday.
We're having direct talks with Iran, and they've started. It'll go on Saturday. We have a very big meeting, and we'll see what can happen. And I think everybody agrees that doing a deal would be preferable to doing the obvious. But it's getting to be very dangerous territory. And hopefully those talks will be successful. And I think it would be in Iran's best interest if they are successful.
Trump hasn't mentioned where the talks will take place, but according to Iran, it will be in Oman. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi will represent Iran. Steve Witkoff, the US envoy to West Asia, will attend from the American side. Trump pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal in 2018. Since then, Iran has been enriching uranium. Reports suggest that Tehran is just weeks away from getting a nuke. Since coming into power, Trump has pushed for nuclear talks. Iran dismissed direct negotiations on a new deal to curb the country's nuclear program. Tehran had called the idea pointless, but this time they seem to have caved. No one knows what the talks will entail, but Trump issued a stern warning to Iran. If the talks aren't successful, Tehran could be in grave danger. Trump and Netanyahu also discussed Gaza. In March, a fragile ceasefire fell through, and Trump is pushing for peace once again. And Netanyahu wants the hostage deal done. But what they really discussed was Trump's Gaza plan: displace the Palestinians and turn the Strip into premier real estate.
Well, you know how I feel about the Gaza Strip. I think it's an incredible piece of important real estate. And I think it's something that we would be involved in, but, having a peace force like the United States there, controlling and owning the Gaza Strip would be a good thing. Because right now, all it is for years and years, all I hear about is killing and Hamas and problems.
Gaza was the only place where they locked them in. We didn't lock them in. They're locked in. And what is wrong with giving people a choice? Now, we've been talking, including over lunch, about some countries, I won't go into them right now, that are saying, if Gazans want to leave, we want to take them in. And I think this is the right thing to do.
It's a controversial plan, to say the least, and one that could reshape West Asia if it ever comes to life. So, as the curtains fall on another chapter of Oval Office diplomacy, one thing is very clear. Trump isn't just negotiating with Iran or Israel, he's negotiating his legacy in West Asia. And for now, the world watches from the front row.
China is flexing again, this time in Cambodia. The Chinese Navy held drills with the Royal Cambodian Navy. These were held over 2 days. Warships were deployed, joint patrols were conducted, the works. And two things stand out here: the timing and the location. These drills began the day before yesterday, which is the 6th of April, and they were held at the Ream Naval Base. This facility just got a facelift. It was done using Chinese money. A grand opening ceremony was held on 5th April. And the very next day, the Chinese drills began. The message from Beijing is loud and clear. Expansionism is back on the agenda. Let me show you with a map. Like I said, the Ream Naval Base is in Cambodia. It is about 200 kilometers from the capital, Phnom Penh. Ream's location is strategic. It sits on the Gulf of Thailand. And it's a stone's throw away from the contested South China Sea. China has poured millions to upgrade this naval base. It now has new piers and bigger docking facilities. It can accommodate large warships, even aircraft carriers. Fun fact, Cambodia has neither. Do you know who does? China. Beijing's strategy is clear. They wanted a naval base in the South China Sea. Tensions with Vietnam and the Philippines made that impossible. Then Cambodia entered the picture. First, they ditched their partnership with the US. This happened in 2017. Then they turned to China. Cambodia requested China to upgrade the Ream Naval Base. In return, they reportedly offered Beijing full access to the base. This happened in 2021. China agreed, and both sides now have what they wanted. The upgraded base is operational, and the timing is important. It comes just before President Xi Jinping's visit to Cambodia. The announcement came from the Cambodian Prime Minister himself. Listen to this.
This new naval base opening is taking place about 2 weeks before the official state visit to Cambodia of China's President Xi Jinping. I would like to highly evaluate the tradition of our close relationship and cooperation between the Army, as well as the people of the two countries, Cambodia and China.
Cambodia's Prime Minister was all praises for China. Then his tone shifted. He said all friendly nations can use the base, not just China. And he said this as Chinese military officials sat in the front row, not to mention the base is fully funded by Beijing.
Starting from today, Cambodia will welcome all friends who want to participate in any joint military drill here. We have nothing to hide.
So why the sudden change of heart? Perhaps reality struck the Prime Minister. Foreign military bases are illegal in Cambodia. It's a violation of their constitution. Clearly, Cambodia is playing a delicate game here. First, they took China's cash. Then they gave Beijing access to the naval base. Now they want others to use the facility. The US is not buying the story. Neither are Cambodia's neighbors. Thailand, Vietnam, and the Philippines are nervous. They feel China will use the base to carry out more drills in the region. And they make a compelling case. Permanent Chinese presence at Ream is dangerous in many ways. Think about it. China claims all of South China Sea. Their ships constantly harass others. At Ream, Chinese ships will be perched near vital sea lanes, including the Malacca Strait. Beijing will have faster access to contested waters, so it could use the base to quickly call for backup. And that is bad news for the region. So what's coming next? More drills for sure. That's what China says. They want to deploy air and ground assets for future exercises. So China has basically shown its cards. The naval base in Cambodia is part of a larger game. Beijing wants to use it as an extension for its forces. Again, what does this mean for the region? Cambodia continues to walk a tightrope. Its neighbors are raising the alarm. The South China Sea is heating up. China's ambitions go beyond its borders. And Reem could be just the beginning. Let's turn to Western Africa. Tensions are peaking in the Sahel region. Algeria shot down a drone belonging to Mali's military. This happened last week. Algeria says the drone was armed and violated its airspace. Mali's military junta has denied the accusations. In response, they're accusing Algeria of sponsoring terrorist activities. Flights between the two countries have been cancelled, and joining the standoff are Mali's junta allies, Burkina Faso and Niger. They have recalled their ambassadors from Algeria. Algiers has responded in kind. It has also increased military deployments near the border with Mali. So what is the reason behind this flare-up? Our next report explains.
Africa is heating up. Tensions between two countries are pushing the Sahel region to the brink. Locked in this tussle are Algeria and Mali. It all began last week on the 1st of April. Algeria said it shot down a military drone. Algeria said the drone was armed and had violated its airspace, but the drone belonged to Mali's military and was flying along the border with Algeria. Mali has denied Algeria's claims. Mali's military says the drone was carrying out a routine flight and that it didn't violate its neighbor's airspace. The drone was eventually recovered by Malian troops. It was found in northeastern Mali, around 9 kilometers south of the border with Algeria. The incident has left Bamako fuming. They are now demanding answers.
The Malian authorities asked the Algerian authorities to provide them with evidence of the violation of their airspace by a Malian reconnaissance drone. No satisfactory response to the Malian request has been forthcoming for 72 hours. The transitional government concludes with absolute certainty that the Malian Armed Security Forces drone was destroyed as a result of premeditated hostile action by the Algerian regime.
The shooting down of the drone has led to a major standoff. Mali and Algeria have closed down their airspaces to each other. Now other nations are joining in and taking sides. Bamako's allies have responded. The juntas of Burkina Faso and Niger are backing Mali. The three countries share close relations. They left the ECOWAS grouping and formed their own bloc last year. It is called the Alliance of the Sahel States, and now Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger back each other on international issues. They have now recalled their ambassadors from Algeria, and people in Mali are supporting this move.
We used to believe that Algeria stood by Mali, but lately, what we've been hearing really hasn't made us comfortable. So the recall of the ambassadors, I'm in favor. Algeria needs to give a proper explanation.
They were the first to claim that they destroyed a Malian drone. We have to consider that Algeria is seeking war, and the next time they perform such an act, we will wish we had reacted to it.
But Algeria is not backing down, either it has responded in kind. By recalling its envoys from the three Sahel states. Mali has also accused Algeria of sponsoring terrorism in the region. Bamako says Algiers supports groups affiliated with ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Mali is referring to the Tuareg rebels that are active in the country's northeast. For years, Algeria played a mediator between Mali's government and the Tuareg rebels. But the dynamics have changed drastically in recent years. The 2020 and 2021 military coups in Mali have pushed the two countries away from each other. Tensions between the two are now flaring up. While Algeria is increasing its military deployment near the border with Mali. On the other hand, Mali is turning to its junta allies for support. If the situation is not quickly contained, the Sahel could be staring at another security crisis.
New Delhi is rolling out the red carpet today. Dubai's Crown Prince Sheikh Hamdan is visiting. He's on a 2-day visit. This is his first trip to India. India and the UAE share a long-standing relationship. For decades, trade and the diaspora have defined ties, but in recent years, the partnership has deepened. Both countries are expanding cooperation in areas like defense, energy, and critical minerals. Prime Minister Modi himself has prioritized this relationship. The Crown Prince's visit is expected to boost those efforts. Our next report has more.
Sheikh Hamdan bin Mohammed wears many hats. He's the Crown Prince of Dubai, Deputy Prime Minister of the UAE, and also the country's Defence Minister. But online, his 16 million followers know him as Faza. The name means the one who helps. He uses it to share poetry. He's also an equestrian, a trained skydiver, and a scuba diver. His Instagram is filled with moments from these adventures. The Crown Prince is visiting India this week. He's here for a 2-day visit. He's accompanied by top ministers, senior officials, and a high-level business delegation. This is his first chance to experience India's diversity. And India has rolled out the red carpet. The UAE is one of India's key partners in West Asia, and the strength of that bond was visible on the ground. The UAE is India's third largest trading partner and its second largest export destination. The people-to-people ties are strong too. Over 4 million Indians live in the UAE. Most of them call Dubai their home. India and the UAE want to take this partnership to the next level. The Crown Prince met Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar. He also held talks with Defence Minister Rajnath Singh. Those meetings reflect the growing depth of the relationship. Prime Minister Modi hosted a working lunch for the Crown Prince. Later this week, Sheikh Hamdan will travel to Mumbai. He's expected to attend a roundtable with top Indian business leaders. Both countries are expanding cooperation, from defence and technology to energy and infrastructure. Economic ties are also growing stronger. Initiatives like I2U2 with India, Israel, UAE and the US are driving economic integration. So is IMEC, the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor. India and the UAE are also stepping up their coordination on global issues. Both want a larger voice on the world stage. In December, Foreign Minister Jaishankar visited the UAE. He spoke of shared interests in stability, security and prosperity for the region. He said stronger defence ties would help achieve that. West Asia remains volatile. Conflicts in Gaza, Lebanon and Syria have raised tensions for over a year. Yet India and the UAE have kept relations steady. This visit by the Crown Prince is a chance to build on that momentum.
Winter is the coldest season of the year. In India, it goes on from December to early April. That is what the country's weather body says. The Indian Met Department, or IMD. But in today's rapidly heating world, this categorization is a tough sell. For instance, IMD classifies the month of February as winter, but this year, February was the hottest in the last 125 years. March too broke heat records across many Indian states, and now April is here. It is supposed to beckon the spring season. But this April is less about picnicking under the blooming trees and more about applying and reapplying sunscreen. It is less spring and more summer. In fact, the IMD has already sounded an alarm. It has warned of high temperatures in northern India, across states like Haryana, Punjab, Rajasthan, Gujarat, and the capital, Delhi. This week, temperatures are already crossing 40 degrees Celsius. Yesterday, Delhi recorded a maximum temperature of 40.2 degrees Celsius. It is expected to hit 41 in the coming days, 41 degrees Celsius. The IMD has sounded a yellow alert until tomorrow. Now, this department, the Met Department, has 4 color-coded warnings: green, yellow, orange and red. These depend on the severity of the weather conditions. So Delhi's yellow alert means that it will be hot but tolerable for the general public, though it can trigger health concerns for vulnerable groups like infants and the elderly. The state of Punjab has also received a yellow heat wave alert. In Gujarat, things are much worse, though. The temperature has already reached 45 degrees Celsius in Gujarat. A severe heat wave is expected. The state was on red alert yesterday. Now it has been downgraded to an orange alert until Thursday. So northern India is already reeling under extreme heat, and it is a sign of things to come. You see, India usually sees heat waves during summer. Normally, they start occurring from the end of April, but over the past few years, spring season has shrunk. Heat waves are arriving earlier, lasting longer, and becoming much worse. Last year, in fact, was particularly bad. Every state in the country except a few in the northeast experienced a heat wave. 2024 saw the highest number of heat wave days in 15 years. India recorded its hottest day ever at 50.5 degrees Celsius in Rajasthan. As per government data, 161 people died of a heat stroke across the country, though independent experts say the number could be as high as 733. And this summer, things are only expected to get worse. According to India's weather chief, most of India will experience an intense heat wave. Several states will experience more heat wave days than usual and above normal temperatures. That will be the new normal. So is India prepared for this? Can the world's most populous nation handle the heat waves it knows are coming? According to experts, India's level of preparedness has improved. The IMD puts out mostly accurate forecasts. It tracks impending heat waves. It alerts states and districts about a week in advance, and governments begin executing their heat action plan. Think of it as a localized early warning system and a preparedness plan. It is used during extreme heat events to coordinate response and to combat the impact of heat. At least 23 states have developed heat action plans. Many of them use low-cost, easy interventions, like the creation of shades in public spaces, boosting the availability of water, distribution of oral rehydration solutions, ORS, and shifting timings for schools and offices. Experts say these measures have been effective, but we are not heat-proof yet. There is more work to be done. According to recent assessments, India needs more long-term intervention, including better preparation in hospitals, better fire management systems, and greener cities. The goal should not be to wait for a heat wave and then scramble to cope. It should go beyond that. It should involve solutions that can bring down local temperatures. Because sure, climate change is the new normal. It comes with life-changing consequences, but unlike many of them, heat waves can be largely managed if and only if timely actions are initiated. So it will take both prevention and cure for India to take the heat. Since the beginning of time, 5 billion species have existed on Earth. 99.9% of them have vanished. They have become extinct, meaning they no longer exist. As morbid as this is, extinction is a part of nature. But what if it is not forever? That's what an American startup has dared to ask. And now, for the first time in the world, it has brought back an extinct species, a species of wolf, a top predator that once roamed North America. I'm talking about the dire wolf. It died out about 12,500 years ago, but now it is back. How did that happen? And should you be excited about this de-extinction, or should you be worried? Our next report tells you.
This is the howl of the dire wolf. It has not been heard in more than 12,500 years. Because that's when this fearsome wolf species went extinct. But now, in a world first, it is back. American biotech company Colossal Biosciences claims to have achieved this milestone. The same company that is trying to resurrect the mammoth, dodo, and Tasmanian tiger. And last month, used mammoth DNA to create a woolly mouse. Now, it has created 3 dire wolves. They are snowy white puppies. And they have been doing what most wolf pups do. Howling, napping, chasing, and tussling. But they are nothing like the other pups that roam the earth. They are the result of a high-tech challenge. Their genetic makeup has been hacked with advanced tools and ancient DNA. The DNA of dire wolves, the same animals that inspire the canine, Enoceandirus, on the popular TV series Game of Thrones. These top predators once roamed North America, until they went extinct. They were larger in size than gray wolves. They had a wider head, thicker fur, and a stronger jaw. Scientists know this because plenty of their remains have been discovered across America. And this is what gave Colossal the opportunity to de-extinct the species. They took DNA extracted from 2 dire wolf fossils. From a 13,000-year-old tooth, and a 72,000-year-old skull. They used it to make sets of genetic information. Then, they altered cells of gray wolves. The prehistoric wolf's closest living relative, this process is called gene editing. Basically, certain gray wolf gene variants were taken and replaced with traits associated with dire wolves. This helped create embryos of the dire wolves, which were then transferred into surrogates, mixed breed, specifically large, domestic dogs. Because dog breeding is better understood than that of wolves. As a result, 2 male dire wolf pups were born in October 2024. And a female pup was born in January 2025. This is a scientific milestone. But it has raised a range of questions. First, scientists wonder if this is even de-extinction. Since most of the genome is that of a gray wolf, not the dire wolf.
So, yes, they have slightly genetically modified wolves, maybe. And that's probably the best that you're going to get. And those slight modifications seem to have been derived from retrieved direwolf material. Does that make it a direwolf? No. Does it make a slightly modified gray wolf? Yes. And that's probably about it.
Secondly, critics are worried about the pups. They are currently living on an 8 site, at an undisclosed location, enclosed by a 10-foot tall fencing. They are constantly monitored by drones and security guards. But they are effectively alone. They are at the age when their parents would teach them to hunt. But they have none. Scientists know little about what diseases they could catch or how they would replicate. Genetic engineering is a nascent field. It has been about 3 decades since Dolly the sheep was cloned, but other cloned animals still have problems, such as organ defects, premature aging, and immune system issues. It also imperils living animals who are used as surrogates. Thirdly, critics also question the very concept of de-extinction. Colossal has raised at least $435 million since it was founded in 2021. And this is not the only company raising huge sums of money and trying to reverse extinction. So what if this money was instead invested in projects that could save the living animals? That could protect the 47,000 endangered species the world over, instead of raising hybrid creatures. So breeding extinct wolves is a scientific breakthrough. But it is not without a pack of complications. And if humans are playing God, they should hope that critics are just crying wolf, and not foreshadowing.
Being an investor is dangerous nowadays. Every day is like a roller coaster ride. Trillions get wiped out on Monday and billions get added back on Tuesday. It's very hard to keep cool and ride out the storm. What helps is the internet. Memers have been very busy since last week. We've showed you the tariff memes, we've showed you the market memes. Tonight we'll show you the China versus America memes. Donald Trump says he wants to bring back jobs to the US, but Americans say no thanks. They're not interested in low-paying jobs in stressful factories. Take a look at this. Now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. Students cycle from Serbia to Vienna to raise awareness about protests in the country. A US and Russian space crew arrives at the International Space Station aboard a Soyuz spacecraft, and robots greet and interact with tourists in China's Hunan. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1929, Indian revolutionaries Bhagat Singh and Batukeshwar Dutt hurled bombs inside the Central Assembly in Delhi. Their actions rallied public opinion and challenged the British rule in India. After throwing the bombs, none of them fled the scene. They were arrested and they were sentenced to life in prison. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.